And like I said, absolutely love your work. Can you tell us how you became interested initially in not only metabolism, but things that affected, including heat exposure and cold exposure?
Uh, Yeah, so I got interested in learning what is keeping our body healthy. That question arose when I was working at the hospital and I saw many sick people. And many people were, I of course asked them, why do you think that you're here? Why do you think that you're getting you get a blood clot, or you are getting, even some of them, amputated a leg? And it's quite serious what I saw in this department. And over the years, I just keep questioning what is actually going on, what is causing these lifestyle diseases that I saw so much of. And it increased in severity, and it increased also in numbers, how many people we saw here at that ward. And that made me question a lot. I have always been reading a lot of research, and at that point, we were quite certain at the department that I should go back to the university and figure some stuff out. And one of those things were, could I find out what is keeping people healthy? That question is quite big. So, of course, it was to figure out what way or what angle I wanted to go into that. And metabolism has been the one thing that has been always on my mind, always very interesting for me. My family, to my mother's side, many of them have type 2 diabetes. And so I always question, what is exactly that? What's causing it? Can we actually, with behavioral changes, reduce it, or even just not be type 2 diabetics anymore? And actually, my mom was also type 2 diabetic for some years, but with lifestyle intervention, she changed that, and she has not had type 2 diabetes for now 15 years or so. So
Wow, good for
she
her.
is actually cured herself. So it doesn't come out of any just nothing. It just comes from really my childhood, what I'm interested in, what I'm exposed to, and it's just how people build their curiosity towards something, right, and build their passion. And when I then came back to the university, um, I researched something called FGF21. We don't have to talk about that today, but it's about, we discovered the sweet tooth. Where is the sweet tooth? What is it? And what can we do about it? So that's also, in my opinion, very interesting. So that was my first big research study, published that in Cell Metabolism. And then I defended that in my master's, and the same day that I went up and defended that, I went back to the hospital for a job interview to get into brown fat research. And that was quite interesting and new. Nobody has really done anything in humans when it comes to, not nothing, but not much at least. So they asked me, can you do some research in humans here in Copenhagen? And so I did. And why cold and heat, you asked? Well, the most potent activator of this mysterious tissue that we have in our body called the brown fat is actually cold. So the cold temperature was the first thing that I went to and researched and read all the studies on mice, and went all the way back in history also to see, well, exactly how was this discovered, and why is it that we only today, after the millennium, has discovered that this tissue that nobody really have heard anything about is so important in our body, and how is it important?
Wow, that's fascinating. I think a lot of listeners would be fascinated to hear that fat is actually beneficial. Most of us hate fat and we want it gone and don't think it does anything inside the body, when actually there's a myriad of different things that fat tissue does, including the brown fat and what its purpose is. Before we dive into that, I'm just very curious. I've heard you talk a little bit about your mother and her experience with type 2 diabetes. What things did she do specifically to reverse out of that condition? Because most doctors will tell you what you mentioned, that it is a chronic and progressive disease that only gets worse. What types of things did she find that were helpers to her to be able to walk away from that?
Um, she changed her lifestyle. Basically, she started exercising, and also she changed her diet, and these things actually helped her out of it.
Yeah, I'm assuming changing the diet would mean like less processed foods, higher protein, less sugar. Was it along those kinds of lines?
Yeah, exactly. And the exercise part was a huge part of it. She didn't exercise before that, and she was probably as sedentary as anybody else, I guess. And she also lost weight. So I guess that was a huge part of it. So today she's not on medication. She's never been.
That's fantastic. Good for her. That's a wonderful example of
Mm.
something that we can walk away from. That's amazing. And I
Mm.
think I'm a little surprised to hear that you were noticing the increased rates of metabolic disease. I mean, we hear that Denmark is such a healthier country than the United States. Of course, I guess nobody in the world is probably going in the right direction, but it's certainly pretty bad around here in the United States. What are you noticing as far as the overall state of people in Denmark? I thought they were vastly healthier than people around here.
Oh, they are definitely. If we're just going to look at some numbers, because we cannot really rely on what I have observed in the hospital, because that's like N of one, right? But I saw a tendency, and that made my choices to go back to the university. But if you look at the progression of and the prognosis of what we expect of seeing people with severe obesity, we can see that the forecast says that in 2030, we expect that around 25% of the Danish population will be obese or moderately obese, actually, very high obesity. And if you look at the UK, that number would be around 30%. And if you look to the US, that number would be 49%, 0.9. So half of the population would be obese. And that is quite severe. I think that's why we have to do something about this. This is like not a magic, there's no magic pill for this, right? Some say they are a magic pill and that we're going to produce more of them. But if you look at the literature around lifestyle diseases and finding out what is exactly that is changing your biology, so you will have a healthy metabolism, a healthy nervous system, then you have to go and look at what is exactly we need to do, and that is lifestyle changes. So to avoid those lifestyle diseases that often comes with obesity, that is what we want to avoid. So if we can decrease the obesity rate and inflammation in the body, then we can also decrease the rates of lifestyle diseases and also early death. So we can all say that it's probably good to have treatments once, some people would need that treatment, but we also need to prevent this from happening. Only giving pills to people is very short term. So you can only cure once the damage is already done. And it's very, very wrong that we are not forcing, you can say, or not forcing, but we're not giving people the abilities and the empowerment to really change their lifestyle. And I think this should be what we should do, because the pile of sick people is just growing and growing. And we cannot wait on the wrong side and just watch them. I think there's some ethical and morally wrong with this. So that's why I find this research so important. And it's quite a big mission, and I'm not alone in it. So that's comforting.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's very well said. So yeah, those numbers are not great. It sounds like a lot better than around here, obviously, but still trending in the wrong direction. Are your country's food recommendations similar to ours? Is the government or different societies recommending like higher carbohydrate diets, like kind of like food pyramid style, or do you guys have better food recommendations than we do around here in the United States?
Ours is probably not much better, but it is better though.
Okay.
We have different kinds of, for example, I don't think we eat that much white bread as you do in the US. We eat what is called rye bread, and I don't know if you know, but that is very brown bread. And there are scientific studies on this. If you eat this, you will feel fuller for a very much longer period of time, and you don't get those glucose spikes that you do from the white bread, because it's faster sugar change, right? If you look at the molecule, you will see from white bread, then it's clipped very much easier and faster, almost like fast sugar, right? but if you eat rye bread, you will be fuller, you will have much of fiber in that, and it will keep you, so the glucose is not, the spikes of glucose is not that high as it is with the white bread. So we have something that is just in our daily, you can say, nutrition, which is something that is super healthy for you. And rye bread being one of them. So yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, you hear it all the time. People travel from here and go over there, and they maybe can't eat the bread in the United States, but they eat it in Europe, and they're just fine. They don't have celiac disease the way they might have it here,
Yeah.
or they do report like we had a meal and I just wasn't that hungry. I didn't need a snack. So you hear that all the time. So it's interesting to hear the different food cultures, and how much better that would be for the blood sugar spiking. And you mentioned
But
something.
the whole culture thing is actually not only the bread. It's also like we eat a lot of home cooked meals here. So it's and less processed food. So it's very rare that we actually maybe once a week, maybe twice a month or so we go out to eat. But it's not like we do that every day. We don't buy stuff or grab stuff that much than I think that they do in the US. So it's also a cultural thing that we gather the family at least once a day around a home cooked meal.